Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Parent Pivot Podcast. I'm Steve Cummings.
And I'm Julia Cummings.
I was talking with a listener just recently, and I did not realize, we gain new listeners all the time.
Yeah.
And we don't usually get to see them or meet them. But the intro that you hear is from the comedy show Friends.
Right.
And that is Ross Geller trying to carry a couch up a tight stairwell with Chandler and Rachel yelling, "Pivot, pivot, pivot." It's a very iconic
moment on Friends. Yes.
Friends. So if you're new to the podcast, that's where that comes from, because we're here to help parents of adult children pivot from being a parent to a partner.
Yes.
And things. So we have a special guest today. I want to introduce her to you. She is Miriam Groom. She's a CEO and founder, and she's organizational and career therapist, a human behavior specialist. She's got more letters after her name than we do combined. She lives up in Canada, and she's here to talk with us today to talk about to parents of adult children. So Miriam, welcome to the podcast. We're glad you're here.
Hello.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we get a lot of comments from our listeners on, and we've got about 4 different topics that we want to touch base with you on and get your feedback on, is really this whole thing. In fact, you recently had someone contact you, I think through the podcast, and it's all about letting go of control but staying connected. That seems to be harder for some, maybe easier for others. Some are like going, "Wow, I'm so glad, kids, you're out of here. Go. We're buying our plane tickets. We're heading to Hawaii or whatever." But share with us, through your background and experiences about that, and help us talk to parents of adult children on that subject.
Sure. Yeah. So because we started this business about 5-6 years ago from my own misalignment and burnout, and through speaking to adult children, professionals, people of every age, we all have this one commonality, is that everybody's born with their own specific gifts. And and our mission in life, usually, and how I speak to a lot of people, what fulfillment means on a grand scale, is that you give those gifts away. Right. And you give those gifts away to hopefully impact the world. It could be anything. It could be art. It could be therapy. It could be any of those things. Now, I find that what people crave, kids crave from their parents, and that connection that they crave is to be seen and to see those gifts. And the people that know you the most and the people that usually love you the most are your parents. And they've seen you since you were a child, and they've seen you grow up. And I feel like we get mixed up in what does that mean to stay connected? And I think what it means is to, when you might get in an argument with your husband or wife or parent or teacher or sister or brother, you're like, I want you to see me. And I think it's that idea of staying connected, but seeing your child and just asking them about their life, asking about their what they're doing, and seeing them and complimenting them and shining a light on their gifts and reminding them of who they are and what makes them unique and why they were brought here to this earth. And that's what I find a lot of people at any age are struggling with. And it's not only if you're a parent, if you're a brother or a sister or anything. But I think that's where that connection means. Because when we say words like staying connected, it could sound a bit fluffy. And you're like, well, what does that really mean? For me, and our mission and what we want to do is just to be able to shine a light on those gifts and be able to reflect them back to your children without forcing them into a certain path, but just every time you see them, every time you connect with them, trying to, keep that alive in them. Because with all the media and everything, we get inundated and we're overloaded with technology and with information that sometimes grounding your child and bring them back to who they are at their core and reminding them of, what makes them shine and what makes them special will naturally just keep you connected with them.
Yeah, I love that. And I love your kind of picking apart the word connected, because as connected as we are through social media and whatever, we are completely non-connected. We are the loneliest society there's ever been.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is because we aren't known, we aren't seen, we aren't understood, don't ever feel heard, all of those things. And hiding behind a computer is often an attempt to be heard, and it's not happening. So I really appreciate that kind of, let's talk about what connected actually means. So
I'd like to add too, to like, I've been walking with some younger men who are looking at they're starting their life out. They've moved out of the house. They're maybe starting a new job. They're engaged. They're going to get married, and maybe mom and or dad is struggling with that. And there's some expectations, because if you came from a very well-connected family, you're not necessarily, I don't see you as connected as I want you to be as the parent, which, things have now transitioned and changed. You're now an adult. And I don't think it means that that adult child loves mom or dad any less, but those little things change. So I'm curious as to what you've seen in your practice of like that, like how that connection ends up changing, and how we have to let go of expectations and control in order to bless our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually, whether it be in any part of the kind of counseling that we've done, and I'm sure, Julia, you've seen this too, is that people tend to withdraw when they feel at the core that they won't be accepted, and that there's might be some sort of conflict. And so if you stay connected in a way that you're not trying to control the outcome, which is very hard, because as a parent, you want them to learn from your mistakes, and you want to, avoid those things. But at the end of the day, it's their journey. And what I would say is the biggest issue that I've seen is that when you see your child masking, and what happens is that their light is being dimmed, and they're pretending that there's something that they're not. Or sometimes the parent is trying to instill this mask, and then the kid withdraws. I feel like at the core, if we just keep one mantra in our head about how to stay connected with our kids, whether they're withdrawing and starting their own life or whatever it is, but by keeping that line of communication open, and staying interested in their interests, staying interested in what they're doing, staying interested in business as they're starting up, staying interested in, if they're getting married, where do they want to live, but asking questions and staying interested in, oh yeah, what makes you interested in that, and staying curious about who they are, because they came here on this earth as their own beings, their own nature. There is nurture from the parents 100%, but they came, and if we stay in mind that they came with their own beings and their own gifts and their own purpose that aren't, we don't have as parents knowledge of that, really what their so it's inside of them. And if you stay curious and try to dig and say, oh my God, that's so interesting that you want to live here, or that you want to choose this color for your theme for your what makes you attracted to that, and start asking questions to really start discovering who they are, because they're their own beautiful soul inside of them that's trying to come out. And the more we try to control, the more we're putting just maybe barriers, you could call it mass over it, and then you become farther apart. But if you stay curious and you start asking questions, and you become almost like a behavioral profiler, which is what we do, we ask a lot of questions, and it's what makes you attracted to these memes on a line, why do you like that, and then they start asking themselves questions and start being interested and starts loving themselves, and really start asking themselves what makes them interested in that. And then they start doing that internal work. And if you start that when they're young and you continue, you could do that in any time. And you'll probably end up, if you haven't done this in a long time, you'll probably sit in dinner with them or a lunch with them, and it'll probably last hours, because you'll see that the floodgates are going to open, and they're going to be so interested that you're interested in them. But I feel like that's what it is, because the teenagers that we see have a very disconnected sense of self. They don't know, even at the base, what type of food they like. We ask them what type of shows, TV they like, what type of, if you could do anything that you want, what would you do? What type of sport? They have they'll say things that their parents like, they'll say things that when we start asking why, we have to start building a sense of self-understanding. And as parents, if you're that key, they'll want to call you and say, oh my God, I just discovered this about myself. Or, oh, I reacted in this situation, a conflict at work or my first job. What does that mean about me? And if you're staying curious about them, then you'll be that confidant to them instead of them turning to somebody else. And you'd rather them speak to you. You'd rather be that safe space for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love what you're talking about is kind of what you do as a therapist is you're asking people questions where they are solving it themselves, where they're seeing it themselves. And I love that. One of the things that I have often said, like I'll get women who, are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, have been married for 20, 30, 40 years. And, it's not uncommon that a woman at that age starts feeling, who am I? Yeah. I don't know who I am. Yep. I don't even know what I like to do anymore. Yep. It's been all about the family for so long.
Yep.
And one of the things that I often ask them to do is watch, this sounds odd, but to watch the movie, what's the Julia Roberts movie where The Runaway Bride.
Okay.
Because in that movie, she runs away from each wedding. And towards the end, one of the things that Richard Gere says to her in this movie is, I have watched you like a bunch of different eggs. You don't even know what kind of eggs you like, because each person she dated, she liked the same kind of eggs they did. Yeah. And so at the end of the movie, she's able to say what kind of eggs she liked because she figured out who she was. Yeah. And I think that that's just so relevant. And we as parents of adult children can truly be asking, I just love that you're talking about asking them these revealing questions and getting to know them. And, if any of you are grandparents out there, this is a great way to get to know your grandchildren as well. Yeah. Ask them those questions and start at a young age. If you missed it with your kids, you've got another set coming up that you can. Yeah.
Yeah. What I loved is if you were, as Miriam was talking about that, and if you're watching on YouTube, you saw two heads going like this, nodding our heads. That gave me an idea. We should have a Parent Pivot bobblehead of Steve and Julia just going like this. Basically, what you're saying is become a student of your adult child.
Yeah.
Ask open-ended questions. And as I think about it, for we just call it the first 18 years or so, you're shaping and molding, what's right and wrong and things like that. But then it comes this surrender point where it's like, you can't say, I love you and have a wonderful plan for your life. And you're supposed to live close to me and do this and talk to me every day. When I text you, you're supposed to respond immediately and all that's going to change. And that's okay. Your adult child doesn't love you any less. The more you try to control, you're going to smother them. And you have to remember, we didn't want to be smothered and things. And so it's like, it's like, it becomes this, are you doing it for them? Or are you doing it for you? And this is the part where it's like, you can stay connected, be curious, ask good questions. Like Miriam was saying, be a student of your adult child is what we're saying. Love that.
Yeah. And the problem is that exactly what Julia was saying, the parents are feeling this too, right? So you have these adult children, but a lot of this, they say, can you love if you don't love yourself? And that happens a lot. Can you do this for other people if you're not doing it for yourself? And so sometimes it's also the exercise as a parent to say, maybe this is shining a light on the fact that it's time for me, because as a mom, and now fathers too, they stay home with their kids. Sometimes I think life is changing. But if you put the attention all on somebody else, a husband, your kids, and then you're like, every vacation we've gone on, it hasn't been what I like, because it's normal, right? It's the kids and it's this and it's that. But sometimes it's also a sign to say, okay, I'm going to get curious about my child. When they're young, you're naturally curious, right? When they're babies, they're like, oh my God, look, they're taking this apart and they're putting it back together and they're going to be an engineer. And we do that when they're kids and we do that when they're babies, but we lose that, I find, when they're teenagers, and even if they become 6, they became 8, 9, and 10, the kids do require, even in their 40s, require that sense of they don't have that anywhere else other than their parents just adoring them and love, and stay curious in that way. Because people are like, what do you mean stay curious about my kid? Yeah, stay curious about them. If they are, I don't know, driving a car and you're driving with them and they get into an altercation, somebody cuts them off and they react a certain way. Instead of saying, oh no, you shouldn't react that way, be like curious, be like, oh, that's so interesting that you react that way. Because I usually commend them if they stayed calm. You stay so calm under pressure. Like, is that something not? Stay curious, like almost like, how you do in a job. And if somebody were going to come work for you, just stay curious about them, ask them questions like when they were a kid, you know what I mean? Because whenever I connect to like, what does curious mean? We all do that with our babies and stuff like that. Oh, they're walking so soon. They're going to be great. Oh, they're great at reading. Oh, they're going to get into, they're maybe going to publish a book one day. And we lose that sense of curiosity and love, but also for as adults, if you are losing a sense of yourself as a mom or as a dad, and you're like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Maybe I'm retiring. Maybe they're out of the house and I want to know what I'm going to fill my days with. Is it gardening? Is it going back and doing a degree? Is it starting my own small business out of my garage? Is it woodworking? Whatever it is, because we see a lot of that too. It's starting with your own self-discovery. And there are tools like assessments and things like that. Just start asking yourself questions to say, who am I? Because we grow, right? The person that had the kids when they were in their 20s is not the same maybe interests that you discover, in your 50s or in your 60s or in your 40s, and you grow from there. And it's rediscovering who you are, because giving that to your kid when you're already depleted and you don't know who you are, that's where sometimes the kid will feel like, are you asking me this question? Or is there some animosity coming from? Because if you're not filling your own cup, you're not going to be able to give it out.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. I love that and think Absolutely. So. Yeah, that's great. I want to shift over to another topic that we talked about, and we haven't really talked about this too much. So we're going to lean into you on this one. And that's just, how do we support our adult children who sometimes, they're directionless, or they get stuck, or, sometimes there's multiple starts and stops to different careers. And we maybe as adult parents, we are adult parents. We as parents of adult children will go, maybe we're feeling frustrated, like, come on, you've got to get on with it because you're 30, 35, whatever, and you're quote unquote still not there. And this next generation, they're not in a hurry and stuff.
No, they're on a different timetable.
Yeah, we've kind of talked a little bit about that, but kind of speak into that a little bit.
Yeah. This was the reason why I started this business, because I struggled with this a lot. So I had amazing parents, but the only thing that I felt, because we had a lot of kids in the family and all that, I needed some guidance. And my mom was not an organizational therapist. She was not it's hard to give advice, and it's hard to do that for your kids when you don't have the background in it. So you're like, hey, do what I do because this is great. And that's what happens oftentimes with children. But I ended up getting into psychology. It was my first class in university when I was younger. And then I said, you know what, this is easy for me. This comes naturally to me. And I struggled with very low self-esteem. And so what I did was that I was like, if this is easy, therefore it is fluffy and bad. Like, this is not good. I have to go and challenge myself, because when you're in a bad space, you think life is a struggle. Like, life needs to be a struggle. And so, and I realized this after analysis of why I was doing these things. Then I went to finance, and it was kind of the opposite personality type of mine. I still in the business field, but I went to finance. I struggled. So I stayed at I passed. I stayed in like that 70 range, and it took me all my energy to get those grades, because I was outside of my preference zone. I was outside of my skill set. Yeah. But I said, this means it's good because it's hard for me. So everything that is not me is good, is where I want to go.
Yeah.
And guess what? Years later, I went to finance. I started a business in there. I went in to start work for the Big Four. I worked at KPMG. I became a partner. Guess what happened? Major burnout. And then it's like, let's reevaluate. And guess what? I rewinded back to the first class that I did when I got out of high school, and it was psychology. And then I ended up getting a master's later in life, and rediscovering who I was and understanding, why did I make these choices? Like, I was there. It was easy. I could have. Yeah. So all this to say is that if you want to, when they're doing all of this, it's not because they're trying to be difficult. It's about, I wish I knew back then, and all of these experiences brought me to where I am and helping all these people. So I'm not saying that I did not want those experiences.
Yeah.
All those, they were meant to happen in order to bring me where I am.
Yeah.
But if you do have kids, there's a theory about organizational psychology and fulfillment and all this. What it is that if you activate your strengths, your gifts, and your gifts, that sounds very woo, right? What's a gift? It's your strengths. It's what you were given. If
Right.
you put a brain scan on your head and they put brain scans and they started like doing like exercises of understanding which part of the brain is more developed, they could do that. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. You do not need to do that. You just need to discover what are your core strengths. What is a thing that you're naturally gravitate to? What are the things that you are naturally good at? And how could you activate that in your job? And what job means to give it away, to do something, to give it away to people.
Yeah.
Now, the only reason why your children, adult children, even parents are jumping from job to job, which it happens too, because there's a misalignment between what they're doing and their strengths, is because what they're doing and why you're burnt out and why you're switching is because you haven't found that fulfillment. It's just because there's a map and they're just looking around for the X marks a spot. That's all they're doing. And in order to help them, I know this sounds pragmatic and it sounds a bit like, is that same connection thing that we're seeing them and saying, well, since you were younger, you're getting into, let's say, they want to become a notary or something like that. Okay, I want to get into law, I want to become a notary. But as kids, they were performers. They were they were communicators. They were people. They weren't in the corner reading or drawing, or which is a different personality type. Because when you're younger, you're not as inundated with the teachers, your preachers, and your parents kind of trying to mold you into something. You're almost like your pure self, you would say. And so if you see them and you say, okay, I love that, but I just want to shine a light on some of these things that I see in you that really light you up, that really make you who you are. And there's assessments that you could have them do, the really easy free ones online. Truity has a great one, truity.com. And people like me, like proactive, practical advice. There's one called the Career Aptitude Test. So if you go on there, it will tell you, and it uses a Holland's code in the back. It's a proven test to figure out, essentially, out of the 6 parts of your brain, which part of the brain is the most developed. And they link that to job categories and jobs. So let's say you're realistic, it's dominated by men. They work with their hands. They have a personality type too. They're very logical, very practical, a little bit more quiet and reserved, but they love to fix things. They never buy new things. They always want to fix things first. So there's a whole profile in back of that. And understanding and educating yourself, if you're obsessed with psychology and things like I am, which I know you guys love, educating yourself a little bit on the Holland's Code, understanding strengths, and trying to help, instead of guiding, helping see your children and guiding them from a place of valid psychological insight. You know what I mean? Here are the 6 parts of the brain. Here, and I see my kid, he really fulfills this profile. This is what he does naturally when he tries to solve a problem. This is where he goes. And here are some of the job categories that would fit you, like really trying to help, you know what I mean? And sending them down that path. But the person who is a notary, who is the performer, that might be a mask because they're afraid of rejection or self-esteem. And kind of like my background, asking, you seem to be really upset every time you're going to school. Like it seems to be something that you're really struggling with. In university, you're supposed to be excited. You're finally able to study the subjects that you want to study, right? So you're out of this, like, having to do your chemistries and all of this. And you could go and study, I don't know, what is it, social sciences or something that you really want to do. You should be excited. So asking questions and saying, well, what are the things that you're really interested in, and starting to ask the question. So we kind of come full circle to like that whole connection point. If you're already doing that already, then adding maybe some tools that you could give them if they are confused and they are jumping around, and saying, hey, let's sit down, let's do this together. And you should do it on your own, not by saying, you're not this, you're that, but more of a curiosity. From a curiosity point of view, I think that would be really interesting. And
I just want to say this to our listeners. You don't need to be taking notes right here. So those websites that Miriam just mentioned, I will put those down in the show notes. I will take care of that for you. So click on that. You can get those tools. But I love that, Miriam. I happened to be thinking today, I was in a prayer time with a group of guys, and he was talking about his 7-year-old son got in trouble at school. And I think it was just kind of a misbehaving thing in the classroom. Yeah. And it reminded me of Jackson. Mm. There's a lot of times, even in the educational system, where you've got to fit in a perfect box. Yeah. Sit still, be quiet, do this, do that. And if you're not doing it right, you're going to be that kid who's always in trouble. Well, Jackson was the creative guy, and he wanted to be funny. And guess what? He's 30 years old now, and he's a creative guy, and he's funny. And, we want to be the wind underneath his wings. We're not sitting there saying, hey, you need to go this, this, and this. It's like, you decide what you want to do. And we want to help you in whatever that is. You want to become, well, maybe you don't want to become president of the United States, but something really high and good. Or you want to do whatever. That's okay. It's not about me, it's about you. And so, Miriam, I love that. Again, it goes back to the curiosity of their hearts and giving them feedback, saying, hey, when you were little, this is what we saw you doing. So you're molding and shaping the putty on the wheel, but you're still letting it stay moist. So that, as I would say, the father's helping them develop who they are to become, but let them speak more into that. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I just, I love everything you're saying. That's all I want to say is I love everything you're saying.
Oh, that's so sweet. And from a light and positivity point of view, because I struggle with this personally. Like I'm like a kind of typical mom. I don't want him to fall. I don't, and a mother struggle with this a lot.
Yes.
The loss of control. The dads they're player, like they're meant to play with the kid. They're the ones who let them, the moms are the cuddlers and you show them love in different ways. Right. I did struggle with that a lot. And also I had to struggle at work because I'm a bit of a micromanager. There's a control side. So if you're like that, and which makes you a good worker, I guess, but it's hard when you translate that into your kid because you don't want to do any of it. So what I had to put mantra wise in my head is anything that I'm connecting with my kid is coming from a point of positivity and light. It's not coming from negativity or critical. So it's not like, why did you, when you were in traffic and the guy cut you off, you shouldn't be, and he got nervous. I don't know. He told the person off or whatever he did, right. Coming from positivity. So that's, wow, you're so strong. Like everything has its yin and yang, right? Because if he didn't get upset, there's a positive and negative to that. If he did get upset, there's a positive and negative to that too. He won't be pushed around, and that's great. But you have to there's a portion of control on both sides that you have to master. Now, if you come from a point of light, they start loving themselves and seeing that you love them. If you're critical, they'll think that you don't love them. It's a funny thing, especially coming from parents. So I found that that's really interesting. But when you're talking about school, I want to give you guys another resource. It's called the VARC. It is a learning styles assessment, which is really interesting. And this could be applied to very much to kids who are in academic and in school. But my son too, very creative, very funny, very active, very physical, loves to jump on things and like get hurt. Like the opposite, he wants to tackle me 24/7, and I do not like being hurt. I do not. So it's I'm like, and I tell him how much I love that because he's he loves adrenaline and he loves jumping off things. They're kind of a typical boy, right? And what do schools do? You have to sit in your seat, you have to be quiet. And kids who have that personality type have a specific learning style too. They're kinesthetic learners. And this is dominated by boys. They learn by doing, right? By feeling, by doing the thing. So if you want to teach them something, they want to grab your phone or grab the thing and do it themselves. And you're like, don't grab, but that's how they learn. They learn through feeling and through doing. And the VARC assessment will help you, even yourself, because learning styles are really important. So when somebody communicates something to you, you're really trying to learn something, which we learn all our whole life. How do you learn? So in schools, it's auditory and verbal, right? So you're hearing and writing.
Yep.
So verbal, hearing, and writing.
Yep.
If you're a kinesthetic learner, and I was a kinesthetic learner, they thought I had a learning disability when I was in elementary school. They did all these tests, and they thought and I wasn't. I was just a kinesthetic learner, and kinesthetic learners don't learn. And so if you could help your kid by giving them, and visual learners is really hard too, because you need almost, like, if I close my eyes, I could see a mind map. And so I'll learn biology, I'll learn geography that way, because I could close my eyes and I could see it. And so those two learning styles are really hard in schools, because they don't teach you in a visual way. They'll teach you in textbook way, and reading, writing. And so by giving them tools to say, hey, you just don't learn that way. Anytime you want to learn something, draw a picture. And when you close your eyes, you'll visually see it. And artistic kids really learn and draw it, like do it, like go through the motion, do an experiment with it, and actually maybe draw a puzzle and like do the puzzle, cut out the puzzle pieces and things like that. Giving them those tools and teaching them how they learn is just a big gap I find in schools, because as parents, you're expected to do this with your kid, but you don't, or you're not not all parents are psychologists, or they don't have the tools to actually help them with this. And the parents think that the school's doing it. So I found, while doing this, when I'm speaking to these parents who call us, they're like, there's a gap here. And I'm like, yeah, there is a gap. Like, even I think that the school's doing it, and they're not. So there is a gap. It's not your fault as parents. You're not supposed to know this. The schools don't have the resources. They have one guidance counselor in the school. They can't, and sometimes they're not educated in psychometrics and things like that. And so it's really fun to be able to give actual practical tools to say, okay, instead of learning, instead of kind of listening, trying to connect with my kid and guessing a little bit, there's actual tools there that'll say, okay, this behavior links to this type of brain chemistry or skill set. And these skill set actually are activated in these jobs. So this is the types of stuff that they might, or academic paths or anything like that. And you could help. And this is where the problem happens, because then I over control when I help. So I really have to make sure that I don't, over control what I'm helping. I could just help and let it go. Like, let him do it. Don't hover over him. So that's something I struggle with. I relate to a lot of parents who do that, but at least giving tools to base all of your helping in valid psychological frameworks.
Yeah.
So how can we translate that into an adult child who seems stuck?
All of this could be, you could give
it can all be used the same for them.
We use the same tools for professionals. We get retirees who call us who say, my kids are out of the house. I don't know what to, like, I have a sense of myself, but like, it's all been all about my kids. I'm with my wife. We want to do something. I have a garage. And they tell us about all these things that excite them. And you could do this at any age. Be like, hey, let's think about this. You have a ranking of things that you like. We want you to do the thing that your brain has the most developed. The reason why we want that is the thing that you're the best at, or your thing that you're most developed at, is because you won't be against the grain when you're doing it. Like, if I had to do science and chemistry all day, which is something that's outside my preference zone, I have them listed, and that is like the bottom. It's not the way my mind works. And I struggle in psychology too, because psychology has a lot of this investigative scientific side to it. And so I know that I won't be a researcher. Like, that's not what I would do, because that's part of that investigative side. So you have to be aware of that. But also, if you're like, you have a top 3 and you end up choosing the third thing that you're good at as your pastime passion, are you going to be fully fulfilled? Yeah, you're going to be happy, but there's going to be something missing. And sometimes they need to do 2 things. The reason why I struggled, I was a human capital consultant. I did all the psychology stuff, but I did it for businesses. I wasn't impacting people's lives. My client was the business. It was opportunistic. You need to fire somebody. I wasn't helping people change their lives for the better. And that's what meant meaning is different for everybody. So that was the meaning for me. So I had 2 wolves inside of me I need to feed. I really love business. I love the strategy. I love all that stuff. But I also, and I explain this because I know people could relate to it, I also wanted to help. So I need to feed both those things. I thankfully can do that in my job, both those things. Some people need to do one in their job and one in their pastime. And some people are multidisciplinary. They have many talents. And once you start discovering who you are, you'll start realizing that sometimes it's not doing something else, it's adding something else that feeds you too. But without the analysis and without understanding who you are and without taking the time just to say like, what feeds me, what feeds my soul, and what am I meant to do, what am I really gifted at? You do that for you, give yourself that gift, but also help your kids have that gift for themselves that they have. And that's not your fault, because everyone's like, oh, I wish I was more attentive. Your kid not figuring out is not your fault. And also especially in society, like it's not you, it's their journey, and they're meant in their journey to have missteps. Like me being misaligned is not my mom's fault. It's my journey, right? So I really want to practice that.
I just want to close this section as we've been talking about this. What I keep hearing over and over again is just our kids have different learning styles. We had a child that was that way and things. So the school district teaches one way, but that doesn't mean they're going to fit in a box. But also really, this is just about helping them build their own self-esteem and confidence and discover who they are and what they're gifted at. And we're going to put all this stuff in the show notes. In fact, we're big believers in all the different personality tests, that those are all helpful. Please don't take one personality test to be religion. They're all designed to kind of like a kaleidoscope to give you a picture of who you are, whether it's the Enneagram, the Myers-Briggs, all these things that Miriam's recommending. I mean, do all of that as much as you can. A lot of them are free. It's just become a student. You want your adult child, again, you don't say, here, fill this out, I need you to do this or whatever. But while they're stuck and feeling directionless, you might just say, hey, we listened to the Parent Pivot podcast and they had this guest on and they talked about this. Maybe this would be helpful. You might want to check it out and suggest it, more ask permission than to say, here, I want you to do this, because it's not about having control. It's about coming alongside them and building them up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen. Yes.
Let's switch over to now kind of the two more topics we want to talk about, and just talking about, managing anxiety when your adult child's timeline looks different than expected. I'm assuming you were talking about managing our own anxiety, because this isn't going fast enough, and they may still be living with you. They could have gone out and gotten their college degree like we've talked about, but they still don't know what they're going to do. And it's like, you know what? When I got my college degree, I did not know what I wanted to do. And then I went and got my master's degree, and what I wanted to do didn't happen. So I was in my mid-20s and we were starting our family, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. So let's talk about that for a little bit, Miriam. Just managing anxiety when our adult child's timeline is looking a little different than we thought it would be.
Yeah. If we see it as that they're a wise soul inside of their body, and that you're not meant, you're detaching yourself, that you are somehow as a parent meant to choose your child's future. That is their journey on this planet themselves. The only thing that you're meant to do is to trust them. Even as couples, right? We say the worst thing that you could do when a couple is push it, because their self-esteem goes down, because they're like, oh, she or he doesn't trust that I'm able to make the decision. And then you almost get into this like weird vortex, and you get into a fear state. You want to keep your child in a confident, happy state where they're going to feel good about going into the next situation. So if you detach yourself from feeling like you need to show them, you need to fix the situation for them, exactly what you said, Steve, like these assessments are not, the most thing you can do is actually tell them how they were as a kid, and give them that light and that energy, because that's what actually moves the needle. All these assessments, all they do are just hints, right? So with love and compassion, and all you're there is to be cheering them on and adding positivity, light, which is like, I see you, positivity, compliments, and trust. And that's all you're meant to be adding. There in no way is any form of pressure or that will help the situation. And it's so totally normal to do it, but it won't help the situation in any way. And so all you're meant to do is light up the path, almost like if you see yourself as like a lamp lighting up the path, and go away if it's, keep it lit. And that's all you're meant to do. Even if it's just, I believe in you, I trust you, you're going to find your way. And having like just a line of like 5 to 10 things that really mean something to you, that represent you, because sometimes it's hard because you don't know what to say in certain situations when they come to you. And then that connection line, they are going to call you, they are going to answer your phone, because all they're craving is that positivity, light, happiness, and trust. Amen. And that's all I could really say about it. And then giving them tools, giving them those tools are great, but they're going to use them if they need them. You know what I mean? They're if they want to, they'll do it. If they don't, they won't. And even if they don't want to do it and you force them to do it, they're not going to. There's going to be no meaning, that there's no juice that's going to come out of that. Yeah. So that's all I can really.
I want to add too, because you've talked a lot about, even as the parent, how we may be struggling with our own identity and things like that, and figuring out this is something, if you've got a 20-something or 30-something-year-old child who is struggling with this, and you know, that the previous one, the supporting your adult child who feels directionless, and managing your own anxiety when they're not moving. Perhaps you haven't been a great role model in that either. So this is actually something that you could actually pursue together on some level. If you've got an adult child who's stuck, saying, you know what, I'm struggling with the same things. Why don't we do this together? Take this quiz, do this, whatever. Because I need to look at the rest of my life, and what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So you may be actually in the same position in life that you can then pursue that together. I just thought of that.
Yep. No, totally agree. Totally agree. That's awesome. I think so. Yeah. And I work with anxiety driven men, because we don't know how to express our anxiety. We just are told as men, stuff it down. And then I call it leaking out. It leaks out in ways we react to people in our marriage, our coworkers, our families, our parenting. It comes out that way. And yet we're told as men not to have anxiety. Well, you know, on a spiritual side, we've talked about this. Anxiety does not come from the Father. Okay. So there's something internal going on with me. It's like, I just need to surrender and kind of, you know, adjust my own heart and things like that. And trust that you're continuing. I remember one time with Campbell, with our son, who had, who was a different learner, and he was a sophomore or junior in high school. Sophomore. And, you know, in high school, they've put them on this University of California track. You've got to take the AP this and the advanced this and whatever. And he was just struggling like crazy. And I said, Cam, let's take the college thing and put it on the shelf. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, the goal is to graduate high school. So let's change that trajectory. Let's make this meet where you're at. And as I mean, we still talk about it to this day, and he's 34 years old. But it was a very defining moment in our father-son relationship, where it was just like, as I was hugging him, I was sitting there thinking, I have no idea where this is going, but I just want to love my son right now and give him confidence and let him believe in who he is, because he's not that normal A guy that's going to get A grades and apply for USC or Notre Dame or whatever else. Actually, I said that in the same sentence. Yeah. I shouldn't have put those two schools together. But anyway, that's kind of what we're talking about, is like, you know, removing our anxiety and really even kind of surrendering, hey, I've got anxiety about this, you know, and being honest about that. And things, but that's been great stuff. So
because you know, when you know, if you have small children, they say that the most defining thing for them is if you do something wrong, like, you know, raise your voice or whatever, to say sorry, like sorry. And it's so funny, because as parents, you think that shows some sort of weakness. It actually shows humility, and exactly what you guys were both saying about telling your kid, I'm struggling with this. They're like, the guard goes down, or it's okay. You know what? I'm like, yes, we're in this together, and baby steps. Like, let's just get over this hump right now, and then we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. But coming to the level of the child sometimes works.
Yes. It's really having a heart of humility and owning stuff, so they see, hey, you're human too. You're just a few years or however many years ahead of me. And you come alongside them, and that brings encouragement, like takes a lot of the pressure off, a lot of that head and stuff. You're exactly right.
It also makes you a safe person to come to.
Yes.
When you have an issue.
Yeah. Because you know that you're not going to get scolded, shamed, or whatever. I get to have a real conversation with mom or dad.
Right.
Yeah. Stuff. So, all right. Well, I want to shift to an exciting topic that is like what I am doing full time now with the ministry that I have outside of Parent Pivot Podcast, and that's just walking alongside men so they can understand their identity. So here we are, we're parents of adult children, and this can be, and we get a lot about it, like, okay, now who am I? But kind of redefining identity beyond what was this active parenting role, because all of a sudden we flip the switch and they're not in the house anymore. Maybe they're off at college, or they've moved away and they're married and starting a family, which is all good stuff. That's the goal. We want to launch healthy children doing that. But now I look in the mirror and going, who am I and whatever. So let's go down that road about redefining our identity.
So this is when the kids are redefining their identity, the adult children.
I think more that we want to talk about more for the adult parents and stuff.
The adult parents.
How do I redefine my identity beyond this active parenting role that I was doing and stuff like that. So,
and we kind of touched on that.
We have, and we've spoken a lot about this on our podcast. I didn't know if you had anything more you wanted to add to that, or what you've seen in your
because we get a lot of people calling us, and I love doing the intro calls because they come and it's the demographic. You think that these problems are only siloed to, that's why I love that you're talking about the parents, because I'm like, oh, you're talking about the kid. You're talking about the parents, because it's not feeling, we grow, right? And we change as we grow. And in a couple, if you're married, you know this, you're every 10 years, you're not married to a different person, but you guys grow and you develop different tastes in food sometimes, and different interests, and we're all evolving. So it's not because you've been lost your whole life and now you're redefining and you're finally doing it. Sometimes it's just because you just haven't shone the light on yourself for a little bit, and you're like, hey, I actually like these things and I don't like these things. And it's just about being kind to yourself and understanding that you were ever evolving. Plants don't stop growing, trees don't stop growing. We're always evolving. And so it's about being kind and patient with yourself, and taking the time to do the work and to look inside. And we have these little tricks, because I like practical tricks and things to do. And because sometimes I find a lot of advice is, I'm like, hey, but what do I do? And so I try to give a lot of practical advice when I speak to people. But we do these little tricks together in our program to kind of get back to who we are, what we like, what we're interested in, get back to our gifts, get back to things like that. So we have one thing called the morning pages. I think it's author called Jeffrey. Ever heard of the morning pages? Mm-hmm. It's you do them. It wasn't created by me. It's Julia Cameron or something like that. She developed this. Carl Jung talks a lot about this, is that, when you're in sleep, you're in your kind of your subconscious. Your subconscious knows everything. It knows your deepest, darkest secrets, your needs, your wants, and all that. We have a connection to our subconscious, but there's like, it's a little bit foggy, right? So to understand really what your subconscious is telling you, one of the tricks is to, when you wake up in the morning, you're still kind of half in REM sleep. So you're still connected to your subconscious, to take out a journal and to just free write, to write anything that's on your mind. If you're focused on a specific intention, if you do this for over a week, the revelations that come out of these pages are crazy. Old memories that you don't even remember having. And so we do this in our program because the whole thing that we do is aligning people to who they are. They're burnt out, they're misaligned. I don't know who I am, and I want to take off these masks one at a time to figure out my inner onion, like, who am I really? And the morning pages it sounds so simple, but it's been the most revolutionary thing. So if, as a parent, a small thing that you could do to kind of reconnect to who you are, reconnect to your dreams, your wants, your aspirations. Do you want to travel, or do you want to get a farm out and rescue some animals? Like, what is it that you want to do with this stage in your life? Do you want to travel more? Do you want to open up a nonprofit? Do you want to help kids? Whatever it may be. All of these memories, all of these wants, all of these dreams, and also spiritually, being able to open up yourself to messages really helps in doing this journaling exercise. And also starting to reconnect to who you are. It's a really funny one, but it's being ultra conscious of the things that attract you. So like if you still read the newspaper, which section are you, what are you reading? What are you looking at? And if you are on social media, I got off of social media completely on social because it was just too much. But if you're still on social, if you're looking at things on Facebook or anything like that, what are the things that you're reading? What are the things that you're saving? Because you're trying to reconnect to those interests, those intrinsic things that make you you. And the positive part about social media that we saw is that you're doing it subconsciously. You're not, they call it brainlessly, right? You're not conscious of your choices on there. So you're just scrolling and like, what are the things that you're drawn to the most? And when I was going through my burnout, I actually did this exercise, and it was in the stuff that I love: spirituality. I love paranormal stuff. I love the answers to why are we here and all. And I was like, oh my God, I remember that when I was a kid, all I'd ask my dad, and it reminded me of old memories. I was obsessed with why we were here, why God, and I asked him questions nonstop about that type of thing, those types of things. So it reminded me of old, like things that I was really passionate about when I was a child, maybe 6 or 7. And I remember where we were standing, and I remember looking up to him and saying, why do we have money? Like, why can't people, like all these concepts were completely eluded me. And it was so clear in my mind. And I remember being in my body. So all of these things to kind of connect back to you are really fun exercises. And, they'll give you a lot of energy, and they're very inspirational. And then once you have those signs and once you have those messages, then you can kind of act on them. But it'll give you a little bit more clarity.
So what I'm hearing is we just went through this whole piece about helping your adult child who feels directionless and stuck. And then you suggested, hey, why don't you do that with them? That fits perfectly here, because as they're trying to figure out their life moving forward, maybe you're struggling, and maybe you're just waiting, and maybe you already know what you're going to do, but you could be going through it too, to figure out what does your life look like moving forward. And you're right, it does constantly change, even for us. I mean, I just made a career change last year, and I'm in am I in my mid 60s?
Yeah, you're 64.
Oh gosh. You know what? When you're young and you look at someone who's 64, you go, wow, they're old. And then you get to be 64 and you're going, I still got 20, 25 more years left. But you're right, because we have changed, and it's like God puts different things in your heart. You know, your talents are. And the older we get, the more defined it's like, hey, this brings me joy. I'm good at this, because you look back and see those experiences, and you feel affirmed and you feel confident. There's fruit from what you have done and things like that. So it's okay to keep kind of figuring that out. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No.
And all those interests, and what we try to say is that like those interests aren't coming from, they're coming from you and your subconscious, and spiritually, if you want to say that, it's coming from God. Like these are all hints.
Yeah.
Your excitement is a hint from the universe, or if you want to say God, or whomever, to follow that. And the problem is that because I had this experience, when you're in a burnout, depression, anxiety, and you've really gone deep down into a path that doesn't align with who you are, the wall becomes so thick you can't even hear that voice anymore. So it's about, very simply, just taking that away, connecting to who you are, and then make that voice, your inner voice, clearer and clearer. And it's the excitement, it's the happiness, it's the joy that you feel that are hints to say, I'm on the right path. And if you're not feeling those things, sometimes it's because you have to. Like if you have a young kid or whatever, and you have to go to the park on a day and get his energy out, and you're just not in the mood. Yeah, we all have to do things sometimes, and put a happy and reframe your energy, or do things sometimes, a job to pay the bills. That's totally normal. But it's about not breaking your spirit, and understanding that you're doing this because you have to, but keeping a part of yourself that connects to who you are, to your joy, drawing at night or doing whatever, keeping that alive. Because I let it die, and it's hard to grow that again if you don't keep that line. And it's connecting with your kids is helping them keep that alive in them, by seeing them, by saying, you are the cutest kid, you are so active, but saying it from a positive light, because so many parents by mistake, and don't even realize it, are saying it sometimes from a negative side, and the kid's like,
Yeah.
It's positive. It's happy.
And that stays with you if you're not aware. Those thoughts and things stay with you, even though you're not saying those exact words.
Yeah.
That's where the lie. We start believing lies about ourselves, and we can go off down that road. But yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing. I was just going to kind of point out exactly what you just said, because I want to validate baby boomers who are in this stage of life, and some of you are younger than baby boomers. I get that, but many of us were raised by parents who went through very difficult times, who it's lace up your bootstraps and get out there and do what you have to do.
Right.
And so I just want to validate that in my age group, that is our mindset. So having an adult child who's struggling is really hard for us, because we'll go, you got to just do what you got to do, man. Get over it, put the emotions away and get over it. But where I would go with that is, yes, go ahead and work because you have to, and pay the bills and do all of that if that's what needs to happen. But like you said, let's find life somewhere else. What does give you life? What are you good at? And perhaps eventually that will be your full-time job, where you are earning a living, doing something that totally feeds your soul and brings you life and all of that.
I think the one thing I wanted to add to that is sometimes we sit there and think, like you mentioned, hey, I just have to get a job to pay the bills. But here's the thing. We always think, I'm going to now have to do this for the rest of my life. And this is, it's like, no, we go through seasons. Sometimes seasons are short. Sometimes they're a little bit longer, and we think they're an interruption, but they're not. They're really, I mean, we come from the Christian worldview where it's like, this is a divine plan, but be a student of yourself, as we've been talking about today, and realize that this is not going to last forever. You might be learning something or being a part of something. Like I worked at Home Depot for 11 months. I hated it. I went from, a 6-figure job to making $13 an hour. But I was being taught and spoken to like my identity is not wrapped up in my hourly wage. Now, I had to go through that so I can share that with other men who are in that same place. It was painful. It was hard, but I was in it for a short season, 11 months and things. And 11 months felt like 11 years at the time and things, but we got through it and things. So it's kind of a similar thing. We don't like change. We don't like things that are unexpected, and we think that they're going to last for forever.
Yeah. And it's exactly the same story that I have. I couldn't have started this business without all of the twists and turns. I became a naturopath because I just needed, I was trying, and then that didn't go. And I'm like, oh man, that's not working out. And now I've wasted my time and my money doing this. Now I use I ran a family recruitment firm for 15 years, and then that didn't go. And then I went in KPMG, and I did. Without all of these weird experiences, I wouldn't be able to be helping people today. I wouldn't, because I had to hire. I had to somehow use all of that, and it's so funny, and you don't know it until it happens. As long as you have faith, and you're like, this is bringing me somewhere. That's all you could have, because in the moment it's tough. And hindsight's 20/20.
Right.
But
well, what's interesting is we've had to figure that out as parents in our own careers, and now we need to give the space and the grace for our kids who might feel directionally stuck. All these timelines are taking longer. Everything we talked about today in the podcast, and just back up a little bit and just chill. Keep the welcome mat out. Keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat out, which has been the theme of our podcast based on Jim Burns's book and stuff. And again, it's all about relationship over being right. You want relationship so that when, not if, your adult child is experiencing a crisis or needs help, they come back to you because they know you're a safe person. And so when you're offering unsolicited advice, that's a no-no. Okay. It's like, I wish I had a buzzer here to go, that's not what we want. So that would be good. So Miriam, before we say goodbye in the podcast, we want to give you an opportunity. You've been here taking so great time talking to the audience here of adult children. We say it's a shameless plug. Tell us about your business. Tell us what's going on. We're going to put that in the show notes. What else do you do? How are you helpful to anybody? And if you're listening to this going, hey, this would be good for a friend of ours or whatever, please share the podcast with them or any of Miriam's things. So this is your time to put in your shameless plug.
So in one sentence, we specialize in psychologically based career alignment. So all the stuff that we were talking today, this is what we do. So if you could afford to get some help to do this, either find another, shameless plug, but I want to help people. So if you need help with this and we are not the place for you, come to Mindful Career and .ca or mindful-career.com is our US entity. We serve people across the US and Canada, but go find an organizational psychologist. This is what we do, but you could go find one if you want to find one local that you could see in person, because we do all of our work virtual. That's what you need to find in order to help yourself, your student, your adolescent, whoever it is, find some clarity and discover who they are. And then once they do, we then align that to the career and vocation that aligns and that activates those strengths. So our specialty is, of course, career, but this work can illuminate many different parts of your life. It could be what pastimes I want to do. It's how do I show up as a parent and all those things. But of course, we specialize in career and we'll help you align your career with your strengths and with what you're kind of meant to do.
That's awesome. And how long have you been doing that?
We've been in business for about 6 years.
Okay.
And, but our psychologists we have about 45 psychologists across Canada and the US, and they all have over 25 years experience each. Everybody it's very hard to find and recruit. And that's, again, I wouldn't be able to start this business without my recruitment experience that I did, that I thought was a mistake and I thought was a wrong turn. But they have to have experience in psychology, understand neurodiversity, which we didn't talk about, but individuals with ADHD, autism, OCD, how that translates into jobs.
Yeah.
But they also need to have work experience and HR experience. You need to understand org design. How do you jump from one? How do you do transferable skills? You've been working for the government, big issue that we're dealing with for 15 years. You've been let go. 20 years you've been let go, but it was an obscure role in the government. How are you going to translate that into the real world? This is what people like this do. So if you're having trouble with that, the biggest trouble for me is always like, okay, I'm having an issue. Who do I call on for help? Who do I ask for help? And who's specialized to help me? I think a lot of the issues that people have is that, you have a problem in your home and you're calling the wrong specialist. You're calling an HVAC guy to do the plumbing. And this is where people are calling us like, I didn't know these people existed. Yes, they do. And they help with this problem. I went to see a psychologist, which was amazing, but she helped me with the anxiety and the burnout and all that, but she didn't help me align to the right job. There are specialists to do that. Everybody has their vocation. These organizational psychologists will not help you with help you with that. They won't. They won't help you with marital issues or solving, communication issues with your children. They won't. But if you're looking for career alignment specifically, go see an organizational psychologist, us or anyone else, and they'll help you align to a job that aligns with your strengths.
I love it. I love it.
Very
it's been
informative.
Great. Yeah. So if you're listening out there, you're watching us on YouTube. So again, we're going to make another pitch that go to YouTube, because then you get to see our faces, all three of us, and things, and share us wherever. I mean, share this YouTube link or share the podcast with someone else. We would love it if you would rate it, comment on it, and share it with someone who all of a sudden you heard something, go, oh, my neighbor needs to hear this, or my girlfriend or a friend of mine at work or whatever. We're all about ministry and all about helping out other people and things like that. And it's been awesome. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much
Yes.
for
Thank you
coming
both.
and joining us and sharing your wisdom with everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
As we say in Georgia, where Chick-fil-A we're surrounded by it has been our pleasure having you on the Parent Pivot podcast, Miriam. We hope we'll have you back another time and stuff. So thanks for being with us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you both.
Thank you.